You've probably heard that the reason Major League Baseball has never faced competition from a new league in more than a century now is due to its antitrust exemption. That is a lie to a certain extent. The antitrust exemption is very real. It does exist and allows Major League Baseball to operate using monopolistic practices. However, that does not prevent anyone or any organization from starting their own rival professional baseball league here in the States. After all, MLB does not regulate the relocation or placement of baseball clubs outside of the Major League Minor League Baseball pyramid. If someone were to start a pro baseball league in America and put teams in Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Spokane, Sheboygan, it doesn't matter. MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred would be powerless to stop it, at least outright. The league could, of course, use the dark arts of being a monopoly to try to put the kibosh on it. Yet this probably ignores the reality of present day. The power dynamics have shifted. MLB is not the juggernaut of years gone by. It has gone from the United States government and public corporations, as well as potential partners not wanting to run afoul of the game, to the league needing just about everyone involved. With team relocations and sales, a potential lockout, and a history-crushing realignment all on the cards, now seems like the ideal time to revisit this. The thing about these debates is they always get framed in this weird traditionalist versus modernity arguments, and I'm not really interested in that at all. What I care about is the soul of baseball. The sport needs to be fun, it needs to be entertaining, it needs to be local. It is more important than the results themselves. If you use winning to sell pro baseball to a market, you're gonna ultimately lose. Let's be real, Yankees fans are miserable. There's one YouTube channel out there I saw publish 3 videos in the span of a week, and they went from the Dodgers need to start panicking to the Dodgers have had a catastrophic implosion and are done to everything is great again because the Dodgers have returned to first place. Man, that is no way to live life. Not that Major League Baseball cares. It's all about their bank account. It's all about what's best for them, not the sport of baseball. So what does all of this have to do with Major League Baseball's antitrust exemption? It starts with a court case between federal baseball and the National League in which the senior circuit was accused of violating Sherman antitrust laws. The case is never ruled on by Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis, who funnily enough ends up becoming Major League Baseball commissioner a few years after this happens. Go figure. As Landis sits on the case, the American and National Leagues basically buy out several federal league owners, putting an end to the latter, which operated under a fairly noble mission. The Federal League wanted to play good baseball, serve the public, and operate with business decency. Who can't get behind that? Well, the American and National Leagues for starters. The thing is, the Baltimore franchise in the Federal League ends up getting left out entirely in the cold. They are not granted a spot in Major League Baseball or what would become Major League Baseball, nor are they given any sort of financial compensation. They would restart the antitrust fight, emerge victorious in a lower court before the appeals process saw the case matriculate up to the Supreme Court, who rule in favor of the AL and NL on some really dodgy case logic that no one has ever been able to offend. They weren't able to defend it back then, and as time has gone on, it has made less and less sense. Seriously, the only conclusion ever getting for the Supreme Court siding with the National and American Leagues is that they did not want to cross baseball due to its popularity. Since about the 1970s, no judge has been inclined to revisit that, and the reason always is, well, it happened so long ago now, there's no purpose in going back and changing it. It is what it is, basically. I mean, that is the line you'll see used. It just sort of, it exists, so be it. But if it's Roe versus Wade, then you'll get involved. Sorry, not sorry. Anyway, the ruling on this would go on to exempt Major League Baseball from uncompetitive behavior. A notable example of this happened in the 1960s when the Continental League came around and announced it was going to start a pro baseball league in places where there weren't teams, most notably New York City, where everyone was still smarting over the loss of the Giants and Dodgers, and those fans had no desire to support the Yankees. Then, after 60 years of no action, of refusing to expand, all of a sudden, Major League Baseball is like, yeah, I guess it's time we need to start adding some new teams. And what do you know? A lot of those Continental League markets end up with MLB franchises. Major League Baseball adds 8 teams during the 1960s after doing no such expansion for decades upon decades. For the record, the Continental League never plays a game. It has essentially had the rug pulled out from under them by Major League Baseball. It is not just teams that have been impacted by MLB's antitrust exemption, however. The reserve clause has long been used in ways to prevent competition by restricting player movement. Most notably to external leagues. There's a great case of this in the 1940s when a handful of Major League Baseball players opt to go play in the Mexican League. Then MLB Commissioner Happy Chandler banned them all from baseball in America for 5 years. Some of those players do file a lawsuit, but that's a process that takes quite a bit of time. So they're just not seen in Major League Baseball as that is ongoing. Eventually, the league reduces that suspension, and a few of them do make their way back to Major League Baseball. That only happened though because Major League Baseball didn't want a judge to rule on the case, and notably the reserve clause, which would have most likely been seen as unconstitutional. Now, decades after that, the reserve clause is eventually eliminated. Yet Major League Baseball's antitrust exemption in other areas has remained in place and is now used to do some pretty crappy things. Things that clearly aren't in the best interest of the sport, threatening cities with relocation, service time. I mean, the list of unconscionable things Major League Baseball is allowed to continue on with to this day, it sort of boggles the mind. So in that regard, yes, Major League Baseball's antitrust exemption is real and does exist to this day. The lie is that it somehow prevents competition, that its existence means no other professional baseball league can exist in America. Historically, it is lorded over the sport, and as we saw in the case of the Continental League, Major League Baseball hasn't been afraid to use it to snuff out competition. Seriously, there's no way that you can say Major League Baseball putting teams in those Continental League markets was anything but monopolistic, but they get away with it because of the antitrust exemption. Baseball today is far different than it was in the 60s. Even the 80s, certainly the 20s, it's a whole new ballgame today. The thing about a lack of competition is that it makes you soft, it makes you weak, and it certainly makes you complacent. It also makes you blind to your own weaknesses, and this certainly describes Major League Baseball in 2025. The thing is, Rob Manfred, owners, they take solace in the MLB antitrust exemption. It is their security blanket of sorts. The reality is this cartel is far closer to the end of the Ottoman Sultanate than the reign of Suleiman the Magnificent. To understand that, we should look at how Major League Baseball has used the antitrust exemption, in particular as it relates to players, because for a few decades in the 30s and 40s, the league spent a lot of time and a lot of effort in using it to ensure only white, able-bodied males were allowed to play in their league. They locked them to restrictive contracts, told them what they could and couldn't do, and it should be noted, Major League Baseball is really whites only through a lot of the 1950s. Jackie Robinson breaks the color barrier in 47. Larry Doby does it in the American League, but integration is still a ways off. That does not happen with Jackie Robinson. That is years down the line. The Negro Leagues is kind of interesting in all of this because so many folks in Major League Baseball were just racist POSs. That league was allowed to start up and form and gain traction in America. The alternative league survived and even thrived in some locations. There could be no denying integrating the sport of baseball was a huge positive for America, yet there was something that doesn't get mentioned in all of this. It also allowed Major League Baseball to eliminate a potential competitor. That's the part of the story they don't ever tell you. Anyways, back to the antitrust exemption. Major League Baseball spent decades making it impossible for anyone to have enough players to start a new baseball league. Because of how the reserve clause worked, even if you wanted to offer existing Major League Baseball players or just anyone who would want to play baseball in America a contract, MLB could blackball them for as long as they wanted to, and it was all legal. It was all above board because of the antitrust exemption. New profit-driven capitalist Major League Baseball doesn't operate like that. They want fewer players under contract, not more. It's why you're seeing the minor leagues shrink before your very eyes. That's a trend that will only continue, and with the reserve clause gone, Rob Manfred doesn't necessarily have a legal way to blackball anyone who chooses to play elsewhere upon the expiry of their contract. Interestingly, MLB has created a system in which older players now get phased out faster than ever before. In 2005, there were 254 players 33 or older. That number is 192 in 2025. This isn't so much a talent issue or even a player development issue, although it often gets framed that way. The reality here is analytics dictates that everyone play a certain way and does certain things. Why negotiate a contract with an older free agent when you can just pluck someone with 6 years of service time who can do the same thing? It's a terrible, awful construct that does nobody any favors apart from Major League Baseball ownership groups. It's also managed to put a lot of older players with talent who would have managed to stay in the league for longer out of jobs. I mean, you have quite a few players with MLB experience and some name recognition just sitting at home these days. They still have value from a baseball perspective, but not necessarily an analytical one. If all you care about is 2 WAR, and you can get 2 WAR from this old veteran, or you can get 2 WAR from this 25-year-old who's been in your system for 3 years, you're going to go with that guy because he's cheaper, he's under team control, he can't really do anything. Speaking of those players, they just end up getting funneled into the Major League Baseball system because they rarely have any other options. Then they're forced to spend up to 6 years of their career with no control over salary or where they play or really anything. They are just told you are lucky to have the privilege to play professional baseball in America. Deal with it. It should also be mentioned that roughly half of those players will ever reach a second contract in professional baseball. I suppose it would be one thing if going through the minor league system was a home run, a way to advance through the ranks, but it is far from a foolproof system. Regardless of if they come out of college or high school, to that end, Major League Baseball doesn't have a system in place for professional players born in America who aren't in the Rule 4 draft, which only covers amateur players, i.e. those coming from high school or college, although college is no longer amateur, but let's not get lost in semantics. There are mechanisms in place for Asian or Latin American professional baseball players to reach the major leagues, and what they have to go through is, well, I wouldn't say it's less onerous than the Rule 4 draft, but it does give them a little more freedom. There's also the example of players from independent leagues in America signing major league deals, although usually these are non-guaranteed just because it's a pretty small-time organization. The expectations are not particularly high here. I mean, really, the only examples I can think of would be Michael Jordan or Tim Tebow, and they were novelty acts, not talented baseball players. So what I'm asking is, what would happen if a talented prospect in their early 20s or mid 20s that had played in a different professional baseball league in America wanted to go to MLB? I'm guessing owners would collude using the antitrust exemption to try and keep that player's salary artificially low while preventing them from entering MLB as a free agent. Of course, that would be such a blatant attempt at collusion. I don't think they could ever get away with it. And even then, if owners tried to go that avenue, all you would be doing is promoting how great the rival league is by comparison. They are the ones who aren't going to try to artificially depress your salary or try to restrict who you play for or any of that sort of stuff. You would basically be making it look like that league was a better option for players. Better yet, given the sport's unhealthy obsession with launch angle, exit velo, spin rate, velocity, strikeouts, would it be possible for a player like Greg Maddux, a generational talent, to even develop in the modern game to become who he became? He's noted that the coaching pitchers receive these days isn't good for their long-term health or their long-term career prospects. It's also removing opportunities for pitchers to learn how to operate with guile and craft and approaching pitching from a more cerebral perspective instead of just trying to dominate with a few physical traits and analytics. There's truly no country for these players unless they happen to be truly exceptional talents. Teams are now building wins above replacement machines and want replaceable parts more than players. It has long stopped nurturing unique talents in favor of teaching things coaches know can produce WAR. This also creates a system that neutralizes strategy as we know it in baseball. Instead, you're creating a contest that feels more like a game of Hungry Hungry Hippos. Who's gonna do the same damn repetitive thing the best day after day? Hell, Major League Baseball had to make the bases bigger just to incentivize stealing again because the analytics said there was no value in it. The universal DH has become such an interesting bore that now Major League Baseball is constantly going back and unearthing all of these highlights and TikToks and social media clips of pitchers hitting. No one told Major League Baseball to change that rule, by the way. No one was like, yeah, we should have a universal DH, because now you're fondly remembering the past when pitchers did hit. Seriously, this is what happens when organizations aren't challenged, when they don't face competition. Their stupidity is just allowed to fester unchecked. This isn't to say all of baseball is like that. Sometimes a player is just so good he breaks the mold, but those instances are becoming fewer and farther between. Forget about the Cowboys. Where have all the Kent Bottenfields gone? Moving away from the players, there's also the business aspect of the MLB antitrust exemption that we do need to consider here. Basically, it allows MLB to threaten markets, television outlets, sponsors, or anyone who works or could potentially work with the league in the future. If you do something with that rival group, we'll never ever work with you. And the thing is, that probably worked back in the day, in the 50s, in the 60s. Yeah, you could get away with doing that kind of thing. But in the modern day, there's just too much competition. There's too many options to even try to pull that kind of stunt. If Rob Manfred went to ESPN or Amazon Prime or whomever and said, if you air that startup league's games, we'll never work with you again, they'd laugh in his face. They don't need Major League Baseball. What's more, everybody knows that league is going to sell out for the highest dollar. The thing about late stage capitalism is it does not care about pride or honor or your word. It's all about that dollar bill, y'all. It goes for everything else connected to the league as well. You can't threaten everyone. There are plenty of sponsors, plenty of equipment providers, plenty of businesses that have no shot at landing a deal with Major League Baseball. Putting them on a blacklist is irrelevant. They're probably not even going to care or realize it. And that is why Major League Baseball's antitrust exemption in 2025 is a lie. The only thing preventing a new professional baseball league from starting up in America is money. Yet, given how much money is sloshing around sports to start random leagues, you would think someone would give it a shot. America has multiple 3v3 basketball leagues. There are multiple pro volleyball leagues. There are so many professional sports leagues in the world today, yet somehow, some way, Major League Baseball has never faced any competition. Why? To preserve tradition, Major League Baseball has spent the past 2 decades doing everything in its power to kill off the things people love about the sport. It's not about families or kids or fans or any of that. It's all about who is going to pay the most money for the privilege to be involved with baseball. Who's going to pay the most for merch and tickets? What TV network is going to give us the most money for rights? What baseball should be about is spending a summer night at the ballpark. And if you can't make it out to the ballpark, at least watching the game at home on television while you're grilling or doing whatever. That thing that just provides comfort in June, July, August, where you root for your team. Look, history tells us startup sports leagues fail. A baseball entity would most likely fall under the rule, not the exception. But if you're a city with major league aspirations like Portland, Utah, Orlando, Nashville, even Sacramento. If you're a city that's been screwed over by MLB like Oakland or Montreal, maybe you're a town like Austin or Raleigh that Major League Baseball refuses to give consideration to because they have a monopoly and can artificially limit the number of teams. A rival professional baseball league just might be worth a shot because history tells us MLB won't do a damn thing unless there's a threat. Then MLB capitulates and accelerates expansion, or at the very least, you bring some summer joy to your towns. You bring a form of professional baseball home. Maybe it doesn't work long term. That is a very real possibility. The thing is, when folks talk about the WHA or the ABA, the AFL, or even to a certain extent, the USFL, they don't talk about all that money lost. It's all about how revolutionary and important those leagues were for their respective sports. Is the NFL where it is today? Without the AFL happening, absolutely not. The MLB antitrust exemption is a lie, and this sort of means who dares wins, who's going to take that risk, who's going to challenge them. There are a growing number of Americans who want baseball, not late-stage capitalism, and with a lockout looming, the league's popularity seems destined to take another blow. There is a caveat here I do want to stress. You don't approach starting a new professional baseball league in America setting your sights on being competition or driving Major League Baseball out of business or joining a league or whatever it is. Any new professional baseball league in the state should be about an alternative. Baseball that is fun, a product locals will want to come to the ballpark for, or people will want to watch on television. Not due to nostalgia or what was, although you do need to go back and find a way to make baseball as a product, as a viewing experience, a little more interesting. You need to drive out the hegemony analytics has created. It's about playing the sport to the best of your unique capabilities, not because some guy in front of a computer says you need to increase your spin rate because you can give them a 0.5 of a win share, whatever that means. It's also not about winning flat out. It's simply about competing. May the better team win. Look, if your team doesn't win, it'll forever be a shame. Make no mistake about that. However, more importantly, you want to create a baseball product, a baseball experience where you don't care if you ever get back. Thank you for watching this video. If you would like to know more about why NFL ownership has devolved into nothing but a modern form of a monarchy, check out the video in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. And for the National League pitcher who almost led the senior circuit in wins while having the highest or the second highest ERA, video lower left-hand corner. Until next time, I am Cheyenne Hollis. This is The Touchback, and as always, hashtag take it out to the 25.